Amber, Underground, Chapter 4 of the story of the Giantslayer Endeavor. And if you've been following along, you'll know that this endeavor was getting heavier and heavier, and it was only halfway through. And this marathon, number 4, was one of the toughest things we've ever had to go through. As an order, I'd say it ranks at number 2. And number one will be coming in Strange Aeons. And after you hear this story, well, there's only about one thing that would surpass it. So it's a hard one to retell for everybody that was there and went through this one. And it's the first time I'm ever going to tell this here. But the marathon was it was long. It was an incredible marathon in-game, an incredible marathon logistically speaking. And what's important to note is that we had other stuff going on. We're OAD, so we're always playing other things, doing conventions. This was the most Pathfinder that I know I had ever played in a single year. I had passed 500 hours in 1 year GMing and playing. And that's a lot for 12 months. That is like, it was some kind of like record or whatever. It was crazy. And, that's on top of the whole like endeavor just weighing on us. This was, man, what a marathon. All right. So part 4, here's where we're at. Okay. The project was in jeopardy. It was. I mean, if you read these blogs, we were getting beat up. Now we're missing our artifacts. We've already had a lot of character deaths. This project was in such bad shape in game. And the players, I mean, I don't know if they were taking it real hard on themselves, and they were beating themselves up over it, acting like maybe they hadn't played well or made good choices. And I just don't know if that's the case. I think it was just a really tough path. I think it is. I think let me run it against some other people with these giants and let's see what happens. In 1E Pathfinder, come on. I mean, a big crit, it's over. And I think we knew that going in. It happened a lot. And so, I felt bad for them, but at the same time, this is OAD. They got to find a way through it. And so what they decided to do was, for this one, we really needed to refocus the project. And they decided to not allow visitors. They were going to get down to just the core 4. Nobody else. No live NPCs. And the location for this one was going to be very special. We really needed to try to save the project. We had to have a place that was, in fact, we're going to go outside Fort Rannoch here. This was going to be outside of HQ. It was the most sacred place we could possibly go to for this. Almost like a group sojourn or something. And we returned to the birthplace of the order. We got permission from my parents, who happened to be away for a brief time, to run the marathon in the room where it all began. And we went back to that old house. And it felt like 1987 all over again. As we rolled up for the marathon, images of all the bikes on the front lawn, a Friday night, being 10 years old, playing in that living room, where the first quadruple 20s were rolled out of the Amber Die. The first time the Amber Die ever rolled 4 20s in a row was right in that room. We were going to play in it for this marathon. It was very nostalgic. I mean, I really can't even describe it to this point. I mean, we've never been back since. And we rolled up there, and it was sort of like, wow. You walk back into like it's almost like a part in an adventure. That's what it felt like. I feel like somebody should just be reading the, box text as we're entering and carrying in the maps and carrying in the soda and Doritos and everything else. It was that overwhelming at one point. I was like, I don't even know if I should be back here, guys. Like what's going to happen in this marathon? And, oh yeah, it was crazy. And they did it. They refocused, and they guaranteed that at the very least, this project was going to be going on to a part 5. And if you TPK in part 5 in front of the whole community, it's not come on, that's not a waste, and it's, still respectable. Not many groups make it to part 6. You have to hold the group together to get to part 6, and that's actually what we're going to run into in this one. Forget the end game stuff. It's going to be out of game. Now, we also decided to do something really, really cool, and that was to create, if we're going to the mountains, which is where the adventure took place, we were going to turn down that thermostat. We were going to get cold, and we were going to create a feeling of being in the snow, of being up high, and we did it. We bought polymer snow. We did not do this thing justice on the Paizo blog. It is one of the biggest things I regret about the way we presented this one, the way we showed it off. We did not, we could have done so much more. We mentioned it, but I think you had to go to like maybe our social media, and we put it in our PDF of the Giantslayer Endeavor, which is on our Patreon and stuff like that. But it's not, it deserves so much more than what we actually showed of it. So here's what happened. We bought so much polymer snow, and this is like that fake snow you have to make. And it took us a while to make it. You have to put it into these bins, and then it creates fake snow, and the snow is sticking around. It doesn't go away. It sticks around. In fact, that was the problem. It took a couple of weeks after that of going back and back to the house over and over and over to clean this place. It ended up everywhere. It ended up in the stairs, in the bathrooms, in the kitchen. It was all, that wasn't the plan. The plan was put tarps down in the living room. And Mom and Dad, I know this is the first time you're going to hear this story. Oh no. So we put tarps down in the living room and had 3 inches of polymer snow that we stood in the entire weekend. We didn't damage the floor. We did not damage the floor. In fact, the only thing that got broken during that marathon was a lamp that ended up getting knocked over and fell on somebody's head. Other than that, it broke, by the way, and not the head. But the polymer snow was awesome. Besides the fact that you had to stand there and almost fall over all the time, we were wearing socks. It was very slippery. And it was cold. It was super cool. We had hats on. Long sleeves, almost all of us. At times we would get so fired up and people would like get down to their short sleeves, and then always regretted it. Because it was June, by the way. It was June 27th, I think. But I'd recommend, if you're trying to do snow, polymer snow is where it's at. And you can stand in this stuff and play in it, and it's a great time. We had fun with it. It really put us there. It was the most immersive we've ever done, snow-wise, frozen land, ice chambers. We've done it all over the years, but this was the most we've ever managed to accomplish when it came to snow and ice. Awesome stuff. I wish we had done more to show it off, but there was so much other stuff to show off. We had these great maps, right? You had 3 really cool maps in this adventure. You had the brewery, which we did put on the blog. It's very cool. And we also had sort of the hall of the Giants. Another good one there. It was a big map. And that maps, this is all usually 10 foot to a square. So it's just really, really large stuff. Awesome to show off. And then, of course, the largest map I've ever drawn. The tomb of Skirkatla herself. This thing was staggering. It was 2 Mondo mats side by side. Drawing it involved me climbing onto the center of the map just to be able to draw, and I had to work backwards from the inside. I had to clear my entire living room out, push all the furniture to the sides, put both mats down, climb into the middle of them, and draw. Seriously, and stay in the center, and then sort of like draw inside out, because that's how hard it was to get to the center of the map. We put it on a patio to do a shoot for this thing. And of course the players can't see it, so it's very difficult to be able to take these pictures. And I have to set the whole thing up, and I brought a yardstick out there just to provide some scale for this. Somebody was talking to me we run these dynamic tabletop seminars at Gen Con, and I had a person say something about that. They had done a little research on like what were some of the biggest maps that had ever been drawn. This was definitely, it might have been the biggest, or it was close or something like that. But check it out. It's definitely huge. You'll see the yardstick next to it, and just give you a little perspective on how big it is. I think it was a 22 or 24 hour draw, so it was up there with a lot of the other big ones. I remember doing that, and that one pushed us back. I was delayed on that one. It did push back start time, I want to say, by a few hours. Unfortunately, it just took too long. The maps were just too big for this one. We had some really cool stuff going on. We actually built towers, 3D versions of the towers that you're going to be attacking that are part of the Frost Giant camp. We also contacted the author. This is one of the really cool things we get to do as when you do stuff professionally as a role-playing group. One of my most, I'd say, favorite parts of it is you get to contact the authors. You get to talk to them. You get to see their proofs. You get to hear all the insight of what went into writing the adventure. And this one in particular was really cool because we actually got access to the proof of sort of like the original sketch of the Frost Giant camp. The poster map had not been released yet. We made a poster out of the original sketch that Jim Groves had. Really cool adventure. Go check it out if you haven't played this thing. Like I've said before, Giantslayer, when you first hear it, you're like, oh, just giants, whatever. That is not what it is. And I think that it's just such a big misconception. There's so much to this, so much tactically that'll teach you as a player, the way that each module or each adventure path volume challenges you in the series. And this one definitely did that. It had a whole point system worked out where you had to figure out how you were going to undermine the camp. We eventually got to a point where we feel like we just kind of decided as a group, I guess wanted to go for it all. Just go for it. Go for the tomb. I think they got a little nervous that they weren't going to be able to finish in time. Maybe it was sort of an out-of-game thing. I don't know. But they're feeling confident. We only had one character death the entire time. This was the best they performed in the whole adventure path. So unfortunately, it's the high watermark. And fortunately, they also went on to part 5. So all that's great stuff. And like I said, they got down to no visitors. It was just the core 4, the original group that started this whole thing, that planned out the project, that got the approval, that planned the whole thing in the fall of 2014. It was very tight, a very close family feel to it all. And they would end up needing that because what also happened in this marathon was, like all groups, we encounter things out of game, and some of those are things that would normally end either a session or end a group, perhaps break up a group. And one of those would be what one of our guys experienced during this marathon. And he went through a divorce that started during the marathon. Obviously, these things, for anybody who's been through something like that, would go back years and be far bigger than something going on that weekend or whatever, or even in a few months before that. But still, just to go through that together and as a group, and sort of like happened in the middle of the marathon. And I think what it did for us was, there was discussion. We were gonna stop the whole thing. We were actually gonna just cut the project at that point. It was sort of like, whoa, this is major. I mean, it was going down right. It just all kind of like, exploded in the middle of the thing. And we thought about what we want to do. We took about a 10-hour break, which we don't normally do. Maybe it was a little longer. It was whatever we needed, and as a group, we're trying to be there for him. And this is something that we had not faced something like this before. This was the biggest thing we'd ever faced at the time. And I think what made it possible to survive something like this was that we came to a point somewhere on, it was like Saturday night or Sunday night when this happened. It was nighttime, and we realized this is probably the best place for all of us to be then for him, and to be together as a group. It is OAD is like a family. And these marathons, there really isn't a way to describe it unless you've come and done it with us, or unless you've gone through it with your group. They are a bonding experience. Every marathon has an identity. Every marathon etches itself into your memory in a certain way. Some of them are unforgettable, impossible. You carry it with you. I can think of some of the greats right now as I say this that stick with me, and every one of them is different for different players. And I'm sure this one sticks in the mind of certain people more than others. And what I think we all agreed was, regardless of that, what we all agreed was that it reminded us of what we were to each other, and out of game what the order is to each other, and what it means to all of us. And it was just, in many ways, maybe the best thing that could have happened as far as timing, because we could all be there. And I look back like I don't even know how we all pulled through that weekend together, and we did it. We did it, but that's, I think, what it taught us about ourselves. And we realized this is probably why we're together after 37 years of play. 36 years now. 37 soon. It's incredible. And like I said, it won't be the worst thing we've ever faced. That's still to come in future stories and future episodes. But we managed to get through it. And he wanted to continue, and we were willing to let him make that call. And so the Giantslayer Endeavor would continue. It would continue to part 5. And Order the Amber Die proved to itself and its members what makes it a fellowship and what makes it a family. And we were ready to finish this thing. 5 and 6 were on the way.